Hello everyone! A few days ago, something fairly interesting happened at an AOC event. For those of you who don't know who AOC is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she is a very popular politician. She's in the House of Representatives, and I believe she is the top 20, or in the top 20 most followed politicians on Twitter. So she's up there. She's also a co-founder of the proposed bill, the Green New Deal, which planned to take very drastic measures in order to make America run basically on 100% renewable clean energy, as well as some other provisions like healthcare, free healthcare for all, free higher education for all, etc. Anyway, if you haven't seen this already, this is a short clip of what happened.
I think your next campaign slogan has to be this: we got to start eating babies. We don't have enough time. There's too much CO2. All of you, you're a pollutant. So we have to get rid of the babies. That's a big problem. Just stopping having babies is not enough. We need to eat the babies, and this is very serious. Please give a response.
There you go. That's what happened. Obviously, pretty, we'll say, not normal. Why am I making this video, I think, is the question you should be asking me. And if I just saw this clip and I just wanted to show you so you could, I don't know, be entertained for 2 seconds, then I wouldn't even bother making this video because it's not worth it. But there is, as absurd as that video is, there's a higher educational value to that video. And this topic was trending on Twitter for at least a day, yet the vast majority of people on Twitter, as well as mainstream media, missed something crucial about this story, which completely changes your perspective about this woman. She's not actually unhinged. At least there's a 95% chance that she could actually be tricking everyone. I'm not making an argument for her position or for AOC's position. That's not my goal here. I just want to show you, inform you, what the heck actually happened, because there is something really interesting going on. Thanks to AP English 3, we can analyze what the heck actually happened here. So, there's a work by Jonathan Swift, published in 1729, I believe. His piece is named A Modest Proposal, and it quite literally was a proposal meant to be shown and read to the English Parliament. During the time this was written, the English and the Irish would clash frequently, and the Irish were not in power. The Irish were very poor. They were mostly in poverty, and they couldn't do anything about it because the English government didn't want to help them. So Jonathan Swift wrote this piece in order to be, addressed to the English Parliament, and this is basically how it goes. The very first sentence of the work is, "It is a melancholy object to those who walk through this great town or travel in the country when they see the streets, the roads, and cabin doors crowded with beggars of the female sex, followed by 3, 4, or 6 children, all in rags, importuning every passenger for an alms. These mothers, instead of being able to work for their honest livelihood, are forced to employ all their time in strolling to beg sustenance for their helpless infants, who, as they grow up, either turn thieves for want of work, or leave their dear native country to fight for the Pretender in Spain, or sell themselves to the Barbados." Basically, what Swift is saying is to the English Parliament, hey guys, look at our streets. It really isn't that pleasant as we walk down the streets to see all of these poor Irish beggars living in rags and then later becoming thieves or working for our enemies. It's not that good for us. Swift, who is supposedly speaking to the English Parliament, is trying to appeal to them in order to get their trust. So then he starts talking about the problem of Irish women having too many children, and then he talks about those who, quote, are able to maintain their own children, so meaning, live healthy lives, not be necessarily as poor as everyone else. And then he says, although I apprehend that there cannot be so many under the present distress of the kingdom. So that was a little jab at the English Parliament, saying, look, we have so many Irish people living in the streets, but granted, it's not their fault because how we're running this thing. And then a little later, after he continues to build some anticipation for his proposal, he finally says it. And I'll read it quote for quote, because when I first read this in English, it was a little confusing, and I think I actually put a comment with an annotation saying, here, I'll put it on the screen, but this is the quote. I have been assured by a very knowing American of my acquaintance in London that a young healthy child well nursed is, at a year old, a most delicious, nourishing, and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked, or boiled, and I make no doubt that it will equally serve in words I don't know, but anyway, it doesn't matter. This is eating children. It's quite similar with the clip that we saw previously. So, how the heck can we tell that these two, that the AOC clip in 2019 is directly inspired by this Jonathan Swift essay? Swift, as we know, started his essay trying to appeal to his audience, which was the English Parliament, even though he actually was criticizing them the whole time using satire and irony. So let's real quick watch the very beginning of the AOC clip.
We're not going to be here for much long because of the climate crisis. We only have a few months left.
So there you go. That's something that AOC and the lady can agree on. If we don't continue, if we don't do something, we're not gonna be here much longer. Just like Swift started his essay saying, oh gosh, these Irish on the streets, they're just so unappealing. You know, both sides can agree. Then the woman says,
I love that you support the Green Deal, but it's not getting rid of fossil fuel. It's not gonna solve the problem fast enough.
So once again, she's really buttering this up, although she does say that AOC's Green New Deal, which is already a pretty drastic step in an attempt to combat climate change, she says it's not enough. So maybe there would be some disagreement between the two there, but overall, they are still kind of in congruence. They both want to see climate change addressed at a very large scale. So let's look at one more quote from the Swift essay where I think this summarizes his stance very well. He said, I grant this food, referring to children, will be somewhat dear and therefore very proper for landlords who, as they have already devoured most of the parents, seem to have the best title to the children. Swift here is doing something incredible. He's using the logic of the English Parliament, and their logic being not caring enough or not doing anything, not wanting at least to do anything about the poor Irish people, specifically regarding the amount of abuse they're facing with their English landlords. So he's saying, well look, you guys have already allowed these English landlords to, quote, devour most of these Irish people. So would it not be consistent if we implemented a new policy which allowed actual devouring of the people? It's kind of clever. The fact that he's able to prove that we should eat babies using the English Parliament's own logic looks really bad for the Parliament. So essentially, that's the same thing happening in this clip here.
A Swedish professor saying, we can eat dead people, but that's not fast enough. So I think your next campaign slogan has to be this: we got to start eating babies. We don't have enough time. There's too much CO2. All of you, you're a pollutant. Too much CO2.
What's going on, and what almost nobody realized when reporting on this story, is that this lady is not actually insane, at least for the most part. The thing she says is satire. She is criticizing AOC's supposed drastic attempts to address climate change. She is not a crazy supporter of AOC, but quite the opposite. Now, I'm not taking a stance as to who's right on this issue. That's not my role. What I'm here is to at least offers at least a little insight into the educational value of what this lady did, because she quite literally tricked the world. And this is the first time in a while I've seen something like this happen, and I just had to make a video on it because it was honestly so cool to see. I know some of you watching might just be thinking, what if this was just a crazy coincidence? What if she's not actually attempting to cite Swift? Well, let's talk about the other evidence then. First of all, she was wearing a shirt that said "Eat the Babies," which obviously required a lot of preparation. I don't think a crazy, mentally unstable woman would walk in with an already pre-planned shirt, which probably took, at least a few hours to make or order. And just a plan in general. Second, there was a group on Twitter who actually took responsibility for sending this woman to the event. This group said, "It was us, Malthusianism isn't new, Jonathan Swift knew that. Sometimes only satire works." It's not 100% confirmed whether or not this group actually sent this lady, but they are known for doing things like this in the past, so it's fairly reasonable to assume that they are behind this. I just want to quickly point out one inaccuracy about their tweet. They said Jonathan Swift knew about Malthusianism. I don't know if that's what they actually meant to say, but Malthus was born in 1766, and Jonathan Swift's piece was written at least 30 years before that, so there's no way that could work, but anyway. Thirdly, which I think is probably the most convincing piece of evidence that these two events, Jonathan Swift and this lady, are correlated, is that AOC herself tweeted out, "Turns out the woman yelling was a Trump supporter. Doesn't rule out the potential mental issue, doctors do that, but good to know they were not in a crisis." And yeah. So if you already knew about this event, and you weren't exactly aware about the whole Jonathan Swift side of it, a modest proposal, well, I guess now you can go back and watch all the news anchors react to this and interpret the videos in a totally different way. But I hope you learned something new today. That was, of course, the goal of this video. If you want a good summary of everything I discussed in this video, I'll put one article in the description of this video which I think does a phenomenal job of outlining everything Swift said, everything the lady said at the AOC event, and you could definitely go check that out and expand your knowledge aside from simply watching this video. But yeah, other than that, thank you for watching. Hopefully my next video will be my announcement of my book, A Manual to a Productive Debate. I'm very excited for that. That'll be super awesome. And then I think a week later I'll be releasing the audiobook version, so I'll be releasing the paperback and audiobook separately, but that's what I can do for now. So yes, thank you for watching once again, and I'll see you guys next time.